The massive Vidian warship descends upon Nexus 7, its energy weapons primed to obliterate the human colonial outpost. General Zax, commander of the alien vessel, surveys the seemingly defenseless settlement through the ship's view screen. His mandibles click in anticipation of an easy victory against these Deathworlders. As the warship pierces the atmosphere, a lone figure emerges from the colony's central building. Johnny King, a veteran soldier from Earth, stands motionless on the dusty ground. He makes no move to ready weapons or flee. Instead, his fingers dance across a small device strapped to his wrist. Aboard the Vidian ship, warning klaxons blare. Consoles flicker and die. Panic spreads through the alien crew as system after system malfunctions. General Zax barks orders, but his words are lost in the cacophony of terror that grips his soldiers. Unknown to the Vidians, Johnny has activated a fear-inducing weapon developed in secret by human scientists. It exploits the psychological vulnerabilities of various alien species, plunging them into their deepest, darkest nightmares. Vidian soldiers writhe in their seats, assaulted by vivid hallucinations. Some claw at their eyes, desperate to unsee the horrors before them. Others curl into fetal positions, keening in languages long forgotten. The ship lists dangerously, all semblance of control lost to the tide of hysteria. In the chaos, a young Vidian communications officer named Uma fights against the rising tide of fear. Her tentacles tremble as she reaches for the subspace transmitter. With the last vestiges of her willpower, she sends a distress signal to the Vidian homeworld. Her message is brief but chilling. Beware the humans. They weaponize terror itself. As the Vidian warship careens out of control, Johnny activates his comm link. Control, this is King. Target neutralized. Request immediate assistance to secure the vessel. The human colonial governor emerges from the settlement's protective dome. He approaches Johnny, a satisfied smile playing across his weathered features. Well done, soldier. You've passed the final test. Johnny's eyebrows raise in surprise. Test, sir? The governor nods, gesturing to the incapacitated warship above. This encounter was designed to evaluate the effectiveness of our new fear weapon against the Vidian threat. Your performance exceeded all expectations. A shuttlecraft descends from the clouds, bearing the insignia of the Human Defense Force. The governor places a hand on Johnny's shoulder. You've been selected to lead a special task force, King. Your mission: to deploy this weapon in defense of human interests across the galaxy. As the shuttle touches down, Johnny gazes at the Vidian ship. He contemplates the power now at humanity's fingertips, the ability to turn an enemy's mind against itself. It's a weapon more potent than any energy beam or warhead. News of the Vidian warship's defeat spreads like wildfire through subspace channels. In the halls of power on distant worlds, alien leaders reassess their perception of human soldiers. They realize that the true danger of these Deathworlders lies not in their physical prowess, but in their capacity to unleash unimaginable fear itself. The age of conventional warfare is over. A new era dawns, one where the battlefield exists within the mind, and humanity holds the key to victory. As the implications of humanity's new psychological weapon reverberated across the galaxy, Johnny King found himself thrust into a position of unprecedented responsibility. The colonial governor's words echoed in his mind as he boarded the sleek, matte-black vessel christened Shadow Stalker. Operation Phobos's Go, Johnny announced to his hand-picked team as they strapped into their acceleration couches. Our mission: Kepler Station in the Epsilon Eridani system. We've lost contact with our fear weapon research team there. Sergeant Sarah Evans, her red hair tied back in a tight bun, nodded grimly. Any idea what we're walking into, sir? Johnny activated the ship's holographic display, bringing up the station schematics. Intel scarce. Last transmission mentioned a breakthrough, Something about affecting multiple species simultaneously. Then silence. Corporal Diego Ramirez, the team's xenobiologist, leaned forward, his dark eyes scanning the data scrolling across his personal screen. Sir, these readings, if they've managed to broaden the weapon's effect, the implications are staggering. And potentially catastrophic if it falls into the wrong hands, added Private First Class Akira Tanaka, her fingers dancing across her console as she initiated pre-flight checks. Lance Corporal Michael O'Brien grunted as he secured his equipment. So, we're going in blind against an unknown threat. Sounds like a typical Tuesday. As the Shadow Stalker broke atmosphere, Governor Steele's voice crackled over the comms. Captain King, be advised. Long-range sensors detected an unidentified vessel near Kepler Station before we lost contact. Exercise extreme caution. Johnny's fist tight. Understood, Governor. We'll get to the bottom of this. The journey to Epsilon Eridani was tense, filled with preparation and speculation. Johnny drilled his team on Kepler Station's layout, while Diego and Akira pored over data on alien physiologies and the fear weapon's known effects. As they approached their destination, Kepler Station loomed before them, a gleaming construct of metal and composite materials, eerily dark save for a pulsing energy signature at its core. Life signs, Johnny asked, his voice tight. Akira shook her head. Negative. Sir, but that energy reading. It's like nothing I've ever seen. There. Sarah pointed to a sleek, alien craft docked at the auxiliary airlock. Its design was utterly foreign, all smooth curves and iridescent surfaces that seemed to shift color as they watched. Johnny made a quick decision. We split up. Sarah, you're with me. We'll investigate the central lab. Diego, Akira, secure that alien ship. Michael, set up a defensive perimeter at our entry point. As they docked and entered the station, an oppressive silence engulfed them. The corridors bore testament to a violent struggle, overturned furniture, scorch marks on walls, and a disturbing trail of mingled human and alien blood. Johnny and Sarah advanced cautiously towards the central lab, weapons at the ready. They found the entrance sealed by an advanced security system. Akira, Johnny called over the comm, we need access. On it, sir, came the reply, followed by the sound of furious typing. Meanwhile, Diego and Michael approached the alien vessel. As they neared, its external lights flared to life, bathing them in a pulsating glow. Diego stumbled, his vision swimming. Something's not right, he gasped. Some kind of defense mechanism. Back at the lab, the door finally hissed open. Johnny and Sarah entered, finding devastation, smashed equipment, scattered datapads, and in the center, a small pedestal holding a pulsating device. As Johnny reached for it, a hologram flickered to life, the distorted image of Dr. Elena Rodriguez. Her message was garbled, but two words came through clearly. Don't trust. Alarms blared, cutting off the message. Diego's panicked voice filled their comms. Captain, the alien ship, it's powering up. Fall back to the Shadow Stalker. Johnny ordered, grabbing the prototype. Immediate evac. They ran, fighting against fluctuating gravity that sent them bouncing off walls and ceilings. Regrouping aboard their ship, they initiated emergency launch procedures. As they pulled away, the alien vessel detached, moving to intercept. Johnny stared at the prototype in his hand, knowing the risk but seeing no alternative. Brace yourselves, he warned, activating the device. A wave of energy pulsed outward, enveloping both ships. The effect was instantaneous and horrifying. The alien vessel lurched erratically, but aboard the Shadow Stalker, chaos erupted. Sarah screamed, clawing at invisible terrors. Diego curled into a ball, whimpering. Akira's eyes went wide, her mouth working soundlessly. Michael roared, swinging at phantoms. Johnny felt it too, a creeping dread that threatened to overwhelm him. He fought to maintain control, struggling to pilot the ship as nightmarish visions assaulted his senses. As human and alien crews alike succumbed to their deepest fears, both vessels drifted aimlessly through space. Johnny, barely clinging to sanity, realized with growing horror that they had unleashed something far beyond their understanding or control. The prototype pulsed in his hand, a silent promise of power and terror beyond imagination. As the shadow stalker spun into the void, Johnny King faced the chilling reality that their greatest weapon might also be their undoing. Johnny King's grip on sanity slowly returned as the shadow stalker drifted through the void. The prototype weapon's pulsing glow faded to a dim flicker on the control panel. He blinked away the last vestiges of nightmarish visions, his mind clearing like a fog lifting from a battlefield. Around him, his team stirred. Sarah Evans groaned, pushing herself up from the floor. Diego Ramirez shook his head, as if trying to dislodge the remnants of terror from his mind. Michael O'Brien's eyes darted around the cabin, searching for threats that no longer existed. "Status report," Johnny croaked, his voice hoarse. Sarah stumbled to her console. "All systems operational, sir, but—" Her voice trailed off as she glanced at Akira Tanaka's prone form. Johnny followed her gaze. Akira lay motionless, her face contorted in a silent scream. "What's wrong with her?" Sarah quickly ran a medical scan. Severe neurological distress. The weapon's effects seemed to have hit her harder than the rest of us. "Stabilize her," Johnny ordered, turning his attention to the view screen. The alien vessel hung in space, a dark silhouette against the star-studded backdrop. Johnny activated the long-range scanners, searching for signs of life or active systems. "Sir," Diego called out, studying the readouts. "I'm detecting life signs aboard the alien ship, but no power signatures. They appear to be adrift, just like us." Johnny's mind raced, weighing their options. The chance to gather intelligence on an unknown alien species was too valuable to pass up. Michael, prep for a boarding operation. We need to know what we're dealing with." As the two men prepared their gear, Sarah administered a potent sedative to Akira. The tech specialist's body relaxed, but her vital signs remained erratic. Johnny led the boarding party through the portable airlock, the softest of pressurization giving way to an eerie silence as they entered the alien vessel. The interior was unlike anything they had encountered before. Organic walls pulsed with an inner light. Floor panels shifted beneath their feet like living tissue. "It's like we're inside a giant organism," Diego whispered, his scientific curiosity overriding his lingering fear. They moved deeper into the ship, weapons at the ready. In the corridors, they found the alien crew. Insectoid beings lay sprawled on the floor, their multiple limbs twitching occasionally. Compound eyes stared blankly, reflecting the humans' distorted images. "Are they dead?" Michael asked, nudging one with his boot. Diego ran his scanner over the nearest alien. "No, they're alive, but their neural patterns are chaotic. It's as if they're trapped in a nightmare they can't wake from." In the ship's central chamber, a massive crystalline structure dominated the space. Its faceted surface shimmered with data streams and star maps. "This must be their navigation and data storage system," Johnny said. "Diego, see what you can download. Michael, help me secure these aliens." As Diego connected his equipment to the alien technology, the ship suddenly came to life. Walls shifted, forming barriers that separated the team. Floors rippled, creating pitfalls and traps. "What did you do?" Johnny shouted, leaping back as a section of the floor tried to engulf his foot. "Nothing," Diego called back, his voice muffled by the organic walls. "It must be some kind of automated defense system." Separated and trapped in the rapidly transforming vessel, Johnny and his team fought to regroup. They used their combat training to navigate the ever-changing labyrinth, narrowly avoiding being crushed or absorbed by the living ship. As he maneuvered through a pulsating corridor, Johnny spotted an alien data terminal. He accessed it, his eyes widening as he deciphered the information. These aliens, the ZYX Kree, they've been studying our fear weapon technology. How is that possible? Michael's voice crackled over the comm. The project was top secret. I don't know, Johnny replied, but we need to get this data back to command. As the situation grew more desperate, Johnny had a realization. The ship's transformations seemed to respond to their emotional state. The more they panicked, the more aggressive the changes became. Everyone listen up, he broadcast to his team. The ship is reacting to our fear. We need to control our emotions. Project calm. It might give us a chance to regroup and escape. Following Johnny's lead, the team focused on regulating their breathing and heart rates. Slowly, the ship's frenzied reconfiguration began to subside. Walls retracted, creating pathways that led them back together. As they reunited near the airlock, they heard a chittering sound behind them. The ZYX Kree were awakening from their catatonic state. The alien captain, larger and more imposing than the others, locked eyes with Johnny. A voice echoed in Johnny's mind, alien yet clear. Your mastery of fear. Impressive and terrifying. Johnny raised his weapon, but something held him back. He sensed an opportunity. We don't want further conflict. Give us the data you've collected on our technology, and we'll leave your ship and crew unharmed. The alien captain's antennae twitched, considering the offer. After a tense moment, it inclined its head in agreement. As they returned to the Shadow Stalker with the acquired data and samples, an urgent transmission came through. Governor Marcus Steele's face appeared on the screen, his expression grave. Captain King, the situation has escalated. The Kepler Station incident has triggered a diplomatic crisis. Multiple alien races are demanding information about our fear weapon program. Some are calling for preemptive strikes against our colonies. Johnny exchanged glances with his team, the weight of their actions settling heavily upon them. As they set course for the nearest human starbase, he began formulating a plan. The galaxy-wide panic they had inadvertently triggered could be turned to humanity's advantage, but the risks were enormous. The Shadow Stalker accelerated into deep space, carrying with it the potential to reshape the balance of power in the galaxy, for better or for worse. The Shadow Stalker accelerated towards the nearest human starbase, Delta 9, Johnny King's mind racing with the implications of their discovery. The potential to reshape galactic power dynamics took a toll on him as he prepared his team for the diplomatic storm ahead. As they approached the starbase, Governor Marcus Steele's face appeared on the main view screen once more. His expression was even grimmer than before. Captain King, the situation has deteriorated rapidly, Steele said, his voice tense. Representatives from various alien races have converged on Delta 9, demanding answers about our fear weapon program. Some are calling for immediate military action against our colonies. Johnny exchanged glances with his team. Sarah Evans looked worried, while Diego Ramirez's eyes gleamed with scientific curiosity. Michael O'Brien's jaw was set, ready for whatever challenges lay ahead. Understood, Governor, Johnny replied. We'll do whatever it takes to defuse the situation. As the Shadow Stalker docked at Delta 9, a heavily armed security detail met them at the airlock. The team was swiftly escorted through the bustling corridors of the starbase, past nervous-looking staff and agitated alien dignitaries. They arrived at a high-security briefing room where Admiral James Hawthorne, a stern-faced man with steel-gray hair, awaited them. The Admiral's piercing gaze swept over the team as they entered. Captain King, Hawthorne said, his voice gravelly, I hope you realize the gravity of our situation. The Vidians and the ZYX Kree have formed a temporary alliance against us. They're threatening military action if we don't dismantle the fear weapon program immediately. Johnny stepped forward, placing the data crystal from the ZYX ship on the conference table. Admiral, we've discovered something that might change the equation. As the data was uploaded and displayed on the room's hollow projectors, gasps of surprise echoed through the room. The ZYX had been secretly observing human fear weapon tests for months, attempting to replicate the technology. "This is unprecedented," a human scientist exclaimed, her eyes wide as she pored over the data. The ZYX have made significant progress in understanding the fundamental principles of our technology. Admiral Hawthorne's brow furrowed. "This complicates matters. If they've come this close to replicating our work, we can't simply abandon the program." As the debate heated up among the military leaders present, Akira Tanaka, now fully recovered from her ordeal, stepped forward. "Sir, there's more," she said, her voice steady. "The prototype's unexpected effects on humans were due to a breakthrough in manipulating fundamental neurological patterns shared by most sentient species." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Admiral Hawthorne leaned forward, his interest piqued. "Explain, Specialist Tanaka." Akira brought up a series of neural scans on the display. "The upgraded weapon doesn't just induce fear. It taps into the very core of how sentient minds process emotions. This opens up possibilities for both defensive and offensive applications that we've never considered before." Admiral Hawthorne's eyes gleamed with strategic possibilities. A weapon that could incapacitate entire enemy fleets without firing a shot. Johnny, sensing the dangerous direction of the Admiral's thoughts, spoke up. "Sir, if I may, our encounter with the ZYX showed me that there might be another way to use this technology." He outlined his plan for a protective field around human colonies and star bases, a psychological barrier that would induce overwhelming dread in any hostile forces attempting to breach it. The Admiral listened intently, stroking his chin. "It's an intriguing concept, Captain. But can it be implemented quickly enough to address our current crisis?" Before Johnny could respond, alarms blared throughout the starbase. A young lieutenant burst into the room, his face pale. "Admiral, a group of Vidian warships has just entered the system. They're taking up attack positions outside our defensive perimeter." Admiral Hawthorne's expression hardened. "How long until they're in weapons range?" "One planetary rotation, sir," the lieutenant replied. The Admiral turned to Johnny and his team. "You have until then to get your defensive system operational, Captain. If it fails, I'll have no choice but to consider offensive options, regardless of the diplomatic consequences." As the team raced to implement their plan, retrofitting the starbase shield generators with modified versions of the Fear weapon prototype, Sarah made a disturbing discovery. Scans showed subtle changes in the brain chemistry of all personnel exposed to the weapon, including Johnny and his team. "It's enhancing our ability to resist and manipulate fear," Sarah explained, her voice a mix of awe and concern. "But the long-term effects are unknown." Johnny pushed the worry aside, focusing on the task at hand. As they worked feverishly to complete the modifications, Diego's voice suddenly cut through the tension. "Captain, you need to see this," he called out, hunched over a console displaying the ZYX data. "There's evidence here of another species, unknown to us, that possesses similar fear manipulation abilities. The ZYX encountered them in the past." Johnny's mind reeled at the implications, but there was no time to investigate further. The deadline set by the Vidian fleet was fast approaching. With mere minutes to spare, Johnny activated the new defensive system. A shimmering field of energy enveloped Delta 9, pulsing with an otherworldly glow. On the main view screen, they watched as the Vidian ships began to break formation. Some vessels drifted aimlessly, while others turned to flee. The face of General Zax, the Vidian commander, appeared on the screen. His alien features were contorted in a mixture of terror and rage. "What? What have you done to us? He demanded, his voice quavering. Johnny stepped forward, his voice calm but firm. General Zax, we've activated a defensive field around our starbase. What you're feeling is a concentrated projection of fear. We're prepared to deactivate it in exchange for a ceasefire and the beginning of diplomatic negotiations. The Vidian commander's multiple eyes blinked rapidly as he visibly struggled against the weapon's influence. After a tense moment, he spoke. Very well, human. We agree to your terms. Deactivate your weapon and we will stand down. As the immediate crisis subsided, Admiral Hawthorne approached Johnny, a look of grudging respect on his face. Well done, Captain. You've bought us some time. But this is nowhere near the end. The Admiral's next words confirmed Johnny's suspicions about the far-reaching consequences of their actions. Earth Command is already discussing the formation of a new elite force specialized in fear weapon tactics and diplomacy. They're calling it Project Nightmare, and they want you to lead it. Johnny looked at his team, seeing a mixture of excitement and apprehension on their faces. He knew that they had opened a new chapter in human history, one where the power of fear itself had become humanity's greatest weapon and shield against the dangers of the galaxy. As news of the events at Delta 9 spread, requests for fear field protection began pouring in from human colonies and outposts across the sector. Johnny and his team prepared for their next mission, knowing that the true test of their new technology and its consequences was just beginning. As news of the events at Delta 9 spread, requests for fear field protection began pouring in from human colonies and outposts across the sector. Johnny and his team prepared for their next mission, knowing that the true test of their new technology and its consequences was just starting. Before they could embark on their next assignment, however, an urgent transmission came through. Admiral Hawthorne's face appeared on the main view screen, his expression grave. Captain King, your team is to report to Earth immediately. Top Brass wants a full debriefing on the Delta 9 incident and your findings. A transport is en route to collect you. Within hours, Johnny and his crew found themselves aboard a sleek, high-speed shuttle bound for Earth. The journey was tense, filled with speculation about what awaited them at headquarters. Upon their arrival, they were whisked away in unmarked vehicles to a location deep beneath the Pentagon. The elevator descended for what felt like an eternity before opening into a vast, high-tech facility unlike anything Johnny had ever seen. They were led into a circular chamber where a group of stern-faced individuals sat around a curved table. Admiral Hawthorne was among them, along with several other high-ranking military officials and scientists Johnny didn't recognize. Welcome, Captain King, a silver-haired woman at the center of the table said. I'm General Lydia Frost, head of the newly formed Interstellar Defense Council. We've been eagerly awaiting your arrival. As Johnny and his team took their seats, General Frost continued, the events at Delta 9 have accelerated our timeline. Project Nightmare has been given full sanction and top priority. The room's lights dimmed, and a holographic display flickered to life in the center of the table. It showed a familiar face that made Johnny's heart skip a beat. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, he breathed, recognizing the scientist from Kepler Station, whose garbled warning had started this whole chain of events. The real Dr. Rodriguez stepped forward from the shadows at the edge of the room. Hello, Captain King, she said, her voice steady, but her eyes betraying a hint of tension. I'm glad to see you made it back safely. Johnny's mind raced with questions, but before he could voice them, Dr. Rodriguez launched into her presentation. The upgraded fear weapon has capabilities far beyond what we initially theorized, she explained, manipulating the holographic display to show complex neural patterns. It doesn't just affect individual minds. Our latest research suggests it can influence entire collective consciousnesses of hive mind species. The implications of this revelation sent a ripple of murmurs through the room. Johnny exchanged glances with his team, Seeing his own mix of awe and apprehension reflected in their faces, General Frost leaned forward, her gaze intense. "This is why we've called you here, Captain. The IDC has developed a plan to establish a network of fear field generators throughout human-controlled space. We're calling it the Terrasphere." The holographic display shifted, showing a map of known human colonies and outposts. Points of light began to appear, connecting into a web-like structure. "Your team will be responsible for overseeing the implementation of this network," Admiral Hawthorne added, "starting with our most vulnerable colonies." As Johnny absorbed this information, alarms suddenly blared throughout the facility. The holographic display flickered and changed, showing a sector of uncharted space. A young lieutenant burst into the room, his face pale. "Sirs, we're picking up anomalous readings from the Outer Rim. An unknown alien species is approaching human territory." The room erupted into a flurry of activity. General Frost barked orders as the holographic display zoomed in on the approaching threat. "Initial scans indicate advanced technology," the lieutenant reported. "They appear to be manipulating dark matter in ways we've never seen before." Dr. Rodriguez studied the data, her brow furrowed. "If these readings are correct, our conventional weapons and defenses might be useless against them." General Frost turned to Johnny, her expression grim. "Captain King, we're designating this new threat as the Void Walkers. Your first mission under Project Nightmare is to investigate a human research outpost on the fringe planet Erebus. They've gone silent after reporting strange phenomena in nearby space." Johnny nodded, his mind already shifting into mission mode. "Understood, General. When do we leave?" "Immediately," Frost replied. "Your ship has been upgraded with the latest fear field technology. You'll be our first line of defense against this new threat." As Johnny and his team rushed to prepare for their mission, he couldn't shake the feeling that they were stepping into something far bigger than they'd ever faced before. The fear weapon had opened a Pandora's box, and now they were hurtling towards an encounter with an enemy that could redefine the very nature of warfare in the galaxy. The Shadow Stalker broke orbit, its course set for the distant planet Erebus. As Earth shrank behind them, Johnny gathered his team in the briefing room. Sarah, Diego, Michael, and Akira looked to him, their faces a mixture of tenacity and uncertainty. "All right, team," Johnny began, pulling up the mission briefing on the main display. "We don't know what we're walking into on Erebus, but we need to be prepared for anything. These Void Walkers are an unknown quantity, and if they're behind what happened at the research outpost..." He let the thought hang in the air, knowing his team understood the gravity of the situation. As they began to discuss strategy and equipment loadouts, Johnny couldn't help but wonder what horrors awaited them on the fringe of known space. Space. The tension in the briefing room was palpable as Johnny finished outlining their mission parameters. "Any questions?" he asked, scanning the faces of his team. Before anyone could respond, the ship's intercom crackled to life. "Captain King, urgent transmission from Earth Command," the communications officer announced. Johnny exchanged a worried glance with his team before responding. "Patch it through." Admiral Hawthorne's face appeared on the main display, his expression grim. "Captain, there's been a change of plans. Return to Earth immediately. We have a situation." Within hours, the Shadow Stalker was breaking Earth's atmosphere. As they descended, Johnny noticed an unusual amount of activity in orbit. Defense platforms were on high alert, and numerous ships were positioned in defensive formations. The moment they touched down at a military airfield in Colorado, Johnny and his team were ushered into a waiting transport. The vehicle sped through winding mountain roads, eventually arriving at a hidden entrance carved into the side of a peak. As they entered the facility, Johnny felt the familiar pressure change of a deep descent. The elevator finally opened into a vast, state-of-the-art command center bustling with activity. At its center stood Admiral Hawthorne, now adorned with the insignia of his recent promotion. Captain King, Hawthorne greeted them, his voice tense. Welcome to the heart of the Interstellar Defense Council. We don't have much time. The Admiral led them to a large holographic display where other high-ranking officials had gathered. Johnny recognized Dr. Elena Rodriguez among them, her face drawn with worry. The Void Walkers have made their move, Hawthorne announced, manipulating the display to show the solar system. Multiple red dots appeared at its edges. They've somehow bypassed our early warning systems. We're facing a full-scale invasion. The room erupted into a flurry of activity as reports flooded in. Johnny watched in horror as the holographic representation of Earth's defenses crumbled before the advancing Void Walker fleet. Our fear fields are ineffective, Dr. Rodriguez reported, her fingers flying over a datapad. They've adapted somehow, creating bubbles of altered reality where human emotions have no impact. Johnny's mind raced, recalling their encounter on Erebus. The hybrid fear void technology, he said suddenly. It's our only chance. All eyes turned to him as he explained his plan to create a massive, fluctuating field around Earth using the prototype device. Dr. Rodriguez nodded, already seeing the potential. It could work, she said. But we need to tap into the planet's geothermal energy and link it with the Terrasphere network. The scale is unprecedented. Admiral Hawthorne didn't hesitate. Do it, Captain King. Your team will modify key Terrasphere generators globally. Dr. Rodriguez, start scaling up the prototype. As they moved to their assigned tasks, alarms blared throughout the facility. On the main display, Void Walker ships entered Earth's atmosphere, their weapons unleashing bolts of condensed dark energy that warped the very fabric of space-time. Johnny and his team worked tirelessly, pushing through the fatigue and strange side effects of their prolonged exposure to the fear void technology. Sarah, noticing the toll it was taking, quickly developed a cocktail of stimulants and stabilizers to keep them focused. Cities around the world fell to the reality-bending weapons of the Void Walkers. Conventional military forces proved useless against the invaders. The situation grew increasingly dire as the aliens approached the Interstellar Defense Council's headquarters. Just as hope seemed lost, Dr. Rodriguez's voice came over the comms. The global Fear Void network is ready. But I must warn you, it's highly unstable. The consequences could be severe for both sides. Admiral Hawthorne's response was immediate. We have no choice. Captain King, initiate the sequence. Johnny took a deep breath and connected to the central control system. With a silent prayer, he activated the global fear void field. The facility shuddered as massive generators around the world roared to life, tapping into the Earth's core and projecting a shimmering field of alternating fear and fearlessness into the atmosphere. The effect on the Void Walkers was instantaneous and dramatic. Their ship spiraled out of control, crashing or fleeing back into space as the aliens inside struggled to cope with the rapidly shifting emotional states. But the victory came at a cost. Reports flooded in of chaos erupting in major cities as people experienced violent mood swings, alternating between paralyzing terror and reckless fearlessness. As the first wave of the invasion was repelled, Johnny and his team realized the true magnitude of what they had done. They had saved the world, but at what cost? The fear void field was causing widespread psychological trauma to the very people it was meant to protect. Before they could even begin to address this new crisis, long-range sensors lit up with alarming news. A second, larger wave of Void Walker ships was approaching the solar system, their technology more advanced and possibly capable of adapting to the fear void field. Johnny looked at his exhausted team, then at the worried faces of Earth's leaders. They had won the battle, but the war was just getting started. The true test of humanity's mastery over fear was yet to come, and they would need to find a way to refine their greatest weapon before it destroyed them all. The global fear void field pulsed across Earth's atmosphere, its effects rippling through both human and void walker populations. As cities descended into chaos, Johnny and his team raced against time to refine the system that had become both humanity's salvation and its potential downfall. In her lab, Dr. Elena Rodriguez worked tirelessly, her fingers flying across holographic displays as she analyzed neural patterns and recalibrated algorithms. Johnny stood nearby, watching anxiously as she made adjustment after adjustment. "I think I've got it," Elena said suddenly, her eyes lighting up. "Look at this." She pulled up a side-by-side comparison of human and void walker neural patterns. Johnny leaned in, his brow furrowed. "The oscillation frequency," he murmured, realization dawning. "You've isolated it." Elena nodded, a triumphant smile on her face. "We can target the void walkers specifically now. This should significantly reduce the impact on human populations." Johnny immediately contacted Admiral Hawthorne, who ordered the immediate implementation of Dr. Rodriguez's modifications to the global network. As the changes took effect, reports began flooding in from around the world. The chaos in major cities started to subside, with humans regaining their emotional stability. However, the respite was short-lived. As Johnny and his team gathered in the command center to assess the situation, long-range sensors lit up with alarming new data. "Sir," a technician called out, her voice tight with tension, "we're detecting a second wave of void walker ships approaching the solar system. They're significantly larger and more numerous than the first wave." Admiral Hawthorne's face hardened as he studied the incoming data. "We need a new strategy," he said, turning to Johnny. "Any ideas, Captain?" Johnny's mind raced, considering and discarding options. Suddenly, a daring plan began to form. "Sir," he said, his voice steady despite the audacity of what he was about to propose, "I think we need to take the fight to them." He outlined his plan to retrofit the Shadow Stalker with an enhanced version of the Fear Void generator, allowing them to penetrate deep into enemy territory and disrupt the Void Walker fleet from within. As he spoke, he could see the mix of hope and concern in Hawthorne's eyes. After a moment of consideration, the Admiral nodded. "Do it. You'll have full access to our latest prototype technologies." "But Johnny," he added, his voice grave, "you understand the risks. If you fail—" Johnny met his gaze squarely. "We won't, sir." As preparations for the mission began, a new face joined their team. Major Marcus Graves, a hardened veteran of the Terran Space Marines, strode into the hangar where the Shadow Stalker was being modified. His scarred face and piercing eyes spoke of years of combat experience. "Captain King," he said, extending a hand. "Major Graves, I've been assigned to your team for this operation. My expertise is in ship-to-ship warfare and infiltration." Johnny shook his hand, noting the firm grip. "Glad to have you aboard, Major. We're going to need every edge we can get." As they worked to upgrade the Shadow Stalker, the first ships from the second Void Walker wave reached the outer edges of the solar system. Reports came in of the aliens' alarming new abilities. They were creating localized bubbles of altered reality, shielding themselves from the effects of the Fear Void field. Earth's defensive forces engaged the invaders, but their weapons proved largely ineffective against the Void Walker's reality-warping abilities. The situation grew increasingly dire with each passing hour. Finally, after days of intense work, the Shadow Stalker's modifications were complete. The ship now boasted a state-of-the-art Fear Void projection system and experimental dark matter sensors. As Johnny's team boarded the vessel, they could see the effects of the invasion on the screens around them. Major cities around the globe suffering catastrophic damage from the aliens' dark energy weapons. "All systems go, Captain," Sarah reported from her station. "We're ready for launch." Johnny took a deep breath, looking at each member of his team, Sarah, Diego, Michael, Akira, and now Major Graves. They all nodded, ready for what lay ahead. "Let's go save the world," Johnny said, strapping himself into the command chair. Again. The Shadow Stalker roared to life, its engines pulsing with newly enhanced power. As they broke through Earth's atmosphere, the true scale of the invasion became apparent. The sky was filled with Void Walker ships, their dark hulls blotting out the stars. Using its advanced stealth systems, the Shadow Stalker slipped past the outer defenses of the Void Walker fleet. As they penetrated deeper into enemy territory, reality itself seemed to warp around them. Corridors of twisted space-time opened and closed, threatening to tear the ship apart. "Hold her steady," Johnny ordered as Diego navigated through a particularly violent distortion. "Major Graves, any insights on these defenses?" Graves studied the sensor readings, his expression grim. "They're using dark matter to create these reality bubbles. Our conventional weapons would be useless here. We need to find the source and take it out." As they pushed further into the heart of the Void Walker fleet, the distortions grew more intense. The team relied on Major Graves' combat experience and Johnny's intuitive understanding of fear manipulation to survive each new challenge. Suddenly, their sensors detected a massive energy signature. As they rounded a cluster of smaller ships, they saw it, a colossal vessel that dwarfed all others in the fleet. "That's got to be their flagship," Sarah said, her voice filled with awe and terror. Johnny studied the readings, his mind racing. "It's more than that," he realized. "It's the central consciousness, a hive mind controlling the entire invasion force." The implications were staggering. This ship represented both the greatest threat to humanity and potentially the key to their survival. Johnny's mind raced as he formulated a plan. "We're going to use our fear void generator to target that hive mind directly," he announced. "If we can disrupt it, we might be able to throw the entire invasion force into chaos." The team looked at him, a mix of purpose and fear in their eyes. They all knew the risks. To get close enough to the flagship, they'd have to navigate through the most heavily defended and reality-warped section of the alien fleet. As they prepared for this final, desperate assault, a transmission came through from Earth. Admiral Hawthorne's face appeared on the screen, his expression grave. "Captain King, the Void Walkers have begun a full-scale attack on our major population centers," he reported. "Our global fear void network is straining under the assault. Earth's defenses are on the brink of collapse. Whatever you're planning, do it fast. The fate of humanity rests in your hands." The transmission cut out, leaving the team in stunned silence. The weight of their mission pressed down on them like a physical force. Johnny gripped the arms of his command chair, his voice steady as he gave the order. "Take us in, Diego. Full power to engines and stealth systems. We're going to hit that flagship with everything we've got." The Shadow Stalkers surged forward, plunging deeper into the heart of the Void Walker fleet. As they approached the massive flagship, reality itself seemed to unravel around them. Strange, otherworldly visions flashed across the view screens, testing the limits of both their technology and their sanity. Through it all, Johnny kept his focus on their target. He knew that their next actions would determine not just the outcome of this battle, but the very future of humanity in the face of this otherworldly threat. As the flagship loomed ever larger before them, he prepared to give the order that would change everything. The fate of humanity. As the flagship loomed ever larger before them, Johnny took a deep breath and gave the order. "All hands, brace for impact. Activate dark matter deflector shields." The Shadow Stalkers surged forward, plunging deeper into the heart of the Void Walker fleet. Reality itself began to warp and twist around them, testing the limits of both their technology and their sanity. Strange, otherworldly visions flashed across the view screens, distorting their perception of space and time. Diego's hands flew across the controls, his face a mask of concentration as he navigated through the chaos. "Captain, I'm losing my reference points. The NAV system is going haywire." Major Graves leaned forward, his eyes scanning the rapidly shifting display. Use the dark matter fluctuations as guideposts, he advised, his voice steady despite the madness surrounding them. They're creating a pattern we can follow. Johnny nodded, grateful for the Major's experience. You heard him, Diego. Follow those fluctuations. As they pushed closer to the flagship, the distortions grew more intense. Sarah's station sparked and sputtered, forcing her to reroute critical systems. Michael and Akira worked furiously to keep the ship's core system stable as reality itself seemed to unravel around them. Suddenly, the flagship launched a barrage of dark energy projectiles, each one capable of tearing holes in the fabric of space-time. Johnny's eyes widened as he saw the deadly salvo heading straight for them. "Evasive maneuvers," he shouted. But Diego was already reacting, sending the Shadow Stalker into a series of wild spins and dives. Despite Diego's best efforts, several projectiles were on course to hit them. Johnny made a split-second decision. Activate the experimental dark matter deflector shields. The ship shuddered as the shields sprang to life, creating a shimmering barrier of distorted space around them. The dark energy projectiles struck the shield, creating a spectacular display of reality-warping explosions. The Shadow Stalker rocked violently, but the shields held. "Shields at 60% and holding," Akira reported, her voice tight with tension. With a clear shot at the flagship now visible through the chaos, Johnny knew it was time to strike. "Sarah, power up the enhanced fear void generator. Full charge." Sarah's fingers danced across her console, rerouting every spare ounce of power to the weapon. "Generator charged and ready, Captain." Johnny leaned forward in his chair, his eyes locked on the massive form of the Void Walker flagship. "Fire!" A beam of concentrated energy, pulsing with alternating waves of terror and fearlessness, lanced out from the Shadow Stalker. It struck the Void Walker flagship, penetrating its defenses and reaching the central consciousness within. The effect was immediate and catastrophic for the Void Walkers. The hive mind, overwhelmed by the rapidly shifting emotional states, began to fracture. Across the fleet, Void Walker ships started to lose cohesion, their reality-warping abilities faltering as the central coordination broke down. "It's working," Michael exclaimed, his eyes wide as he watched the sensor readings. "The Void Walker fleet is destabilizing." Johnny saw their opportunity and seized it. "Push forward. Target key ships with short bursts from the Fear Void generator." The Shadow Stalker weaved through the disoriented Void Walker fleet, firing pinpoint bursts at strategic targets. Each blast further destabilized the alien force, causing ships to collide or disappear into pocket dimensions of their own creation. As they approached the flagship's command center, Johnny turned to his team. "We need to board that ship and take out the hive mind directly. Major Graves, you're with me. Sarah, Diego, you're coming too. Michael and Akira, keep the Shadow Stalker ready for a quick extraction." The team nodded, their faces set with purpose as they prepared for the final assault. As they docked with the flagship and stepped into its reality-bending corridors, Johnny activated his personal Fear Void device, creating a protective bubble around them. They encountered a group of elite Void Walker warriors, partially shielded from the Fear Void effect. Major Graves took point, his tactical expertise proving invaluable as they fought through the twisting, ever-changing passageways. "Push through," Graves shouted, his weapon firing bursts of concentrated Fear Void energy at the alien defenders. "We're almost at the core." Johnny, flanked by Sarah and Diego, reached the heart of the flagship where the hive mind resided. They found themselves face to face with the physical manifestation of the Void Walker consciousness, a swirling mass of dark energy and alien flesh. "Now, Captain," Sarah yelled, her sensors indicating the hive mind's vulnerability. Johnny stepped forward, amplifying his personal Fear Void device to its maximum output. The swirling mass before them pulsed and writhed, its form destabilizing under the assault. Suddenly, Johnny felt a presence pushing against his mind. The Void Walker consciousness, in a final, high-stakes endeavor, was attempting to merge with him, hoping to overwhelm him and gain control of the Fear Void technology. Johnny found himself in a mental battleground, fighting against the alien entity's attempts to exploit his deepest fears and desires. He saw visions of Earth in ruins, his team fallen, and humanity enslaved by the Void Walkers. But even as these nightmarish images threatened to overwhelm him, Johnny drew on his experiences and the unique perspective gained from prolonged exposure to the Fear Void technology. He began to turn the tables on the Void Walker consciousness, projecting a vision of humanity's resilience and adaptability. In this mental landscape, Johnny showed the alien scenes of human history, of people overcoming insurmountable odds, of courage in the face of cosmic terrors, of the unyielding human spirit that had brought them to the stars. The hive mind, unable to comprehend or counter this new form of resistance, began to collapse in on itself. Johnny seized this moment, focusing all his will and the full power of his Fear Void device into a final, shattering blow. The Void Walker consciousness fractured, its countless fragments scattering across dimensions. The physical manifestation, before them, imploded, taking with it the cohesion of the entire Void Walker fleet. As the flagship began to destabilize around them, Johnny turned to his team. Back to the ship now. They raced through the disintegrating corridors, reality itself unraveling in their wake. Major Graves covered their retreat, holding off the last desperate attacks from the remaining Void Walkers. They reached the Shadow Stalker just as the flagship began to fold in on itself. Diego threw himself into the pilot's seat, his hands flying over the controls as he disengaged from the dying vessel. "Hold on," he shouted as he pushed the engines to their limit, weaving through the chaos of the collapsing Void Walker fleet. As they broke free from the destruction behind them, Sarah's console lit up with incoming transmissions. "Captain, it's Admiral Hawthorne." Johnny nodded, catching his breath as the adrenaline of their narrow escape began to subside. "Put him through." Admiral Hawthorne's face appeared on the screen, his expression a mix of relief and amazement. "Captain King, what's your status?" "Our sensors show the entire Void Walker fleet is." "Well, it's gone." Johnny allowed himself a small smile. "Mission accomplished, Admiral. The Void Walker threat has been neutralized. We're heading home." As the Shadow Stalker turned towards Earth, Johnny looked at his team, battered, exhausted, but alive and victorious. They had faced the ultimate cosmic horror and emerged not just alive, but triumphant. But even as relief washed over him, Johnny knew that their work was not nearly finished. The implications of what they had done, of the power they now wielded over fear itself, were staggering. As Earth grew larger in their view screen, he began to contemplate the challenges and opportunities that lay ahead for humanity in this new era of cosmic understanding.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.